wait and see what comes out of it before I say much. But that will be about it on the sanitation that I know of. So
Out of county garbage.
yeah, another thing is the county garbage, out of county garbage stuff. There's one way to solve this problem, and it's not for the workers to go out and try to be patrol officers when they're just private individuals, because they could get hurt. But it's not a matter of that, but we need to hire, like we had one time in every other officer we had in this county. We've had 2 litter officers, and I was third one at one time that did the litter stuff. But somehow or another, we seem to not have the ability to hire one litter officer. This one litter officer could rotate between every one of them, but it's got to be somebody that knows your people to do this, to find out, to weed out the ones that we don't need in this county, let them take their garbage back to where they came from. I discontinued 2 or 3 of them the other day because we didn't have a place to put it. Told them to go Dunlap with it. They looked at me and said, "Where's Dunlap?" And I thought, fine time to say that to me. And thank you very much.
Okay.
Why would we,
Go ahead.
why would we not look at people's tags? And if it's not from Squatch, if it's got a Hamilton County tag on it, why would we not send them on their way?
Well, here's the deal. Sequatchie County, you go to Bledsoe County, you can't give a Bledsoe County tag. Sequatchie County has Marion, Van Buren, Ray County, Hamilton County. All those tags are registered in these areas. And when you say something about the people on tags, if they got canfolk, say they live, somebody can Eric somewhere, I'm just using an example right. Say, well, I live right next to Eric, or I stay with Eric. You know, there's no way in the world I can go over and ask Eric, who all live in your house? He'd probably tell me where to shine the sun.
Whatever happened to the idea about getting a sticker from Dunlap?
Yeah.
Well, we started over 2 years ago, we passed this resolution to remove this garbage from people from Allen County. They were talking about stickers. The county executive seems like he just can't seem to put an act together. That never happened. So I asked him, I said, put another one out 6 months or a year later. Let's go with light bills. If you got light bill or some kind of utility in your house, give me a receipt showing where your lights are. So no, we can't do that. So we're down to the litter officer, and that will work.
I mean, a sticker looks like they ought to be a house leader answer.
Well, that's what they do. Keith was kind of where he'd probably give one of his neighbors or somebody else. You can see somebody, I ain't saying named Keith exactly, but I'm just saying he could or anybody else could give somebody a sticker to the buddies. And their buddies.
Any law that you have, there's going to be corruption to a certain extent.
Right.
But I think we come closer to solving the problem if a few snuck in. I mean, it's just going to happen.
Right.
Well, it would be something to get it under control.
So here's what happened at the last meeting is they were looking at these cameras. They did buy them. They're prototyping them up on cable, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And I didn't think that was a good solution because then you're going to get a bunch of data, right? A bunch of video. Who's going to look at that video? Right? I mean, somebody needs to sift through all that, and by that time, it's days later. So I think, Chester, you were going to ask for another meeting, sanitation committee.
Yes,
to
I
look
am.
at that. The other topic that we're working is really a bigger thing because so much of our budget, and it's increasing every year, the amount of money it costs for us to, haul trash to the landfill. Right, and then we don't do anything with it. We don't recycle. There's no separation. There's nothing else that we do with the trash like some other counties do. So I talked to the county executive this week about MSW, municipal solid waste alternatives. The development district is somebody that would be involved in that, and that's we need to work that. through the development district and then probably look at other counties. They had a meeting, I know, this week that Keith went to talk about something like this. So that requires more homework. I'm just saying we just scratched the surface with that conversation saying, you know, as a county, we need to look at that because how much money we're spending on that if we could decrease that, then that's just that much more money we got to put towards other things. And it keeps going up. So that's, you know, that's just like that's in its initial stages right now. There's a company that we've been contacted. They have a working, they basically have it's small scale right now, but they're burning how many tons of trash? I forget.
200 tons.
Yeah, 200 or 400 tons. And they basically burn everything. It burns like 95, 97%. They can burn tires too, and then they can, you know, kind of separate the metal. So there's technology here. You know, what happens to that? I don't know. We were talking about it, and we're thinking that you know, there are a lot of technologies out there. Other counties and other states are doing other, you know, they have solutions for this problem, or they're, you know, they've already looked at these things.
200 to 400 tons a day, a week, a month.
I think that's.
Well, I think it's based,
I think it's
probably a year or something like that.
Yeah, it's really small
It's
scale.
not, we're not on
I know they're proposing that they scale it up, but what I saw is not. I want to see numbers.
I'd like to see RFI.
So yeah, we were talking about, you know, why don't we float an RFI? And that's something that needs to go into committee. Go out with a request for information. See what companies are out there. You know, you write kind of what your problem is. We're looking for a solution. Give us some options. And then, you know, kind of probably some ballpark figures, cost. They'd have to size the plant and all that kind of stuff. Kind of how would the deal be structured? Would they want the county to pay for it? Would, you know, I mean, all those kind of different options. But I think that's really a good starting point with an RFI. So that's what we're going to push for right now, unless something changes. Okay.
Well, can I ask, you know, Hamilton County has a pretty massive recycling
Right.
thing. Would that hybrid system help alleviate some of the?
It may or may not. I mean, I think there's a lot of good ideas, but until you start running the numbers to see which one makes sense for the, you know, the type of waste stream that we have, the amount that we have, you know, the composition of it, that kind of thing. So I think we've really got to, you know, the RFI would help us as a first step to see what's out there. You know, what are the solutions people have out there? What's working? And maybe the development district already has some insight on that. Also, there's state level organizations that can help with that. So I think it's just something that the committee's got to focus on and get going with it. Not put cameras up it. I mean, I don't think that doesn't make sense to me.
Well, it sounds to me like it's going to be good money after bad, because you're going to spend a lot of money to track those people down, and nobody's going to pay.
Yeah, right now there's no track people down system in place, so, yeah, I didn't think it was very well thought out. So, budget committee, so charitable and nonprofit policy. So, my discussion with the county executive was that this is a dead issue. I don't think it's a dead issue, but what they have in place, rather than put the whole policy out that, you know, that was put in front of at least the committee last time, but there was no real discussion on it. During the budget process on June 8th, like the way the budget process works is all the budgets are pretty much in now to the county executive office. So, you know, he puts it all together. Then it goes to the committee. We were supposed to have a meeting on Monday the 27th, but that was canceled. And the next meeting is going to be May 4th. So what they want to do with the charitable and nonprofits organizations, that, you know, the 501s basically, is on June 8th, have them come up in front of the committee. And what I asked for is somebody that screens them before we get to them, you know, before they come in front of us, to make sure they're legit 501s. That was a big issue last year. So, I mean, why waste our time if they're not, you know, hold on. Just give me a minute. The other thing that they're going to do is fire departments. Peggy, she's not here. Yeah, so June 18th, These are the dates I have from him. This isn't posted on the county website yet, but June 18th, the fire departments are gonna come in and talk to the budget committee. So, every year we give, and it's uniform across the board. Last year was 30,000 to each of the 6 fire departments across the county. The year before, I think it was 25. There are people that are gonna propose, there are rumblings, last year there was an initiative, although it never really got any traction, it wasn't fully baked out, where the ISO rating, right, that the ISO rating, would determine how much money they get. Like, in other words, it was more of an incentive system. If they go out there and they get the training, they get more volunteers, and their ISO rating improves, then they should get more percentage of the money. That was a proposal last year, but it didn't go anywhere. This year, I'm hearing how many calls they made, because some of the fire departments in the city, they may do a lot more calls than what we get here on the mountain. There's probably going to be a couple different ideas that get put in front of us. My idea is, why don't we have criteria for how we give money to any of these nonprofits? Right? And we don't have that criteria, so it's very difficult to make a decision, because now you got everybody that's on the budget committee is going to come in there, and they're going to, and the fire department's going to have their own ideas, so we're going to wind up just, arguing, and then eventually.
Well, my idea would be on that thing, as far as just my personal thing, and I'm pretty sure that you all kind of agree in a way, I guess, or think about it. Let's create this thing equal. I mean, if these other money be made for their department, they've got a bigger department in a better place where a lot of traffic, they can do a lot of them things that we ain't got the ability to do. So that's based on their character, not ours. But I think the tax money should be on a 501(c) and state equal, but not count one fire department or nobody else better than somebody else, and let them stand on their own.
Let's take a few minutes, and what do you guys think on this?
Yeah,
'Cause, we're open to anything. This is going to come up pretty quick.
I think on the ISO rating, we should incentivize it, just because every one of us in the room is directly impacted by that ISO rating, because it's directly correlated to your home insurance premium. And I got really deep into this on the insurance for the distillery, and her level increase on ISO is around $10,000 in insurance premium for me just on my distillery building. Now, there's a lot bigger coverage on that building than the standard home, but it's about a $500 difference just on my home for each step that they make up.
Yeah.
So if we can incentivize.
That seemed like a good idea, last year, but, the other thing is hopefully they'll come in front of us. The way the law reads is, they should come and ask, right? We should have a budget that we look at, but they should ask us and give us the rationale. Here's how much I'm asking for, here's what I'm gonna do with the money. And at the end of the year, they're required to report what they did with the money. I mean, that's kind of common sense. That should be part of the checklist, but I haven't really, I don't know how we're going to approach this yet, because that was all written in the policy, the draft policy, and now we got something else that I haven't seen. Yes, ma'am.
I'm remembering at a retreat that the fire department for District 8 came and presented what they did. They got their eyes.
Yeah, Lemon Oak.
So maybe whatever they do,
They got a new chief, that's what they did.
Let's do that.
But, no, I'm just saying, that's what they did. I mean, that was, well, they did, once they got the new chief,
Yeah.
they went out, they had a volunteer drive, right? They really focused on that. They looked at what is the problem. The problem really isn't money. It's a volunteer problem. And, so they focused on that, and then when you get the volunteers and you got to train them, you got to go to training. It's a considerable amount of hours, and, all those people work, right? So that's another hurdle, I know, in the process, but that's really what they did. And then, upgrading their equipment, that kind of stuff, yes, ma'am.
Can the county require that and then support that in some way? Like, pass a county-wide whatever.
Okay, remember, volunteer fire departments are 501s, they're
So you can't.
entities.
You can't.
Now, we can, some,
Yeah.
yeah, this is a bigger topic, we talked about this last year, and we got briefed on this. Some counties have gone to a fire, what do they call them? County fire chief.
Right.
But it's difficult to get to that point, because all fire chiefs are independent. They don't want somebody over them, right? I mean, there's a lot of issues with that.
That's county involvement, and you get like that. Hey, which one you got?
Sorry.
My question or statement goes back to the trash situation. If we've moved on, then I can hit it at the end, so.
Okay, we'll give you a minute. Just, all right. Anything else on this?
How many fire departments do we have?
6.
6. Do we give them all the same amount of money?
Same amount.
I'm hearing that there's an ISO rating and the amount of cost. Can we not set it up that they get a certain percentage of that money if their ISO rating is a certain point and they get so much percentage on the amount of calls they make? Can we not do something
You
like that?
can make that equation have as many variables as you want. I'm just saying right now, there's no structure. It's like, we argue over what the amount should be, and then, you know, vote, and then, you know, it becomes a number then that we take to the floor of the commission. That's the way it's been done. So, you know, and the fire chiefs are, sometimes they're in the audience and they'll tell you how much cost it is, how much the tires cost, how much gas costs, upkeep on the trucks and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, there is cost involved.
Well, the tire cost and the expenses would be less for one that did 50 calls versus one that did 150 calls. So the expense is going to be way different.
Right.
That's the reason I'm saying, can we figure out a percentage? We've got X amount of dollars you can get if you're the top ISO and you're the top one that does the most amount of calls. And the rest of them is going to fall under that as they fall away from that.
We can, I mean, we're just open to suggestions, but here's another thought, is all this money that they're getting, it's our tax money. Okay, so,
And this county has got to set a policy and procedures in order to get all this together like this. This is part of the policies and stuff in this county, and we have gotten none.
well, I guess if you look at it from that angle, you know, and then if we want our insurance rates to go down, which is tied to the ISO rating, you know, is it fair that, you know, let's say we bring our ISO rating, but we have 1/5 of the calls that somebody else does because they're in the city or near the city, greater population area. You know, how is that?
Well, you can set it up where 70% of your funding comes from your ISO rating and 30% comes from the
Right,
amount of calls.
no, I get it. I'm playing devil's advocate more than anything else. Okay, all right. So we're open to anything. You know, if you all have any ideas or if you want to, you know, let us put together a formula or something. I mean, this doesn't, you know, it could be on the back of an envelope, but just something for us to consider when we go in there because we're going to get ideas thrown at us.
It's a table that we can work from. It's what we're trying to get.
Yeah, so,
So I have a question though. Are each of the fire departments accountable to, it sounds like they don't have any checklists that they have to go against with their money. At the end of the year, did they say, okay, here's what we spent money on?
No,
there's no accountability for
Well,
what
that's not
for the money we give.
that's our say until we get policy.
That was the point of the policy, was to be in compliance with the law that allows us to make these donations, and then also have accountability over the money. Okay, so we'll see how this goes. I don't think it's gonna go very well because that, you know, the policy I thought was pretty thorough. It's more than just seeing if these guys, you know, have a charitable status still, they're legal, they're sending their IRS. It's more than that. You know, it's really the accountability part on the county side. You know, how do we make sure of that? That's the part that I think is important. Because it's your tax money. You want us to be able to account for it. Us, the county legislative body, actually the FO of the county needs to account for this, right? And then we, as the county legislative body and then the budget committee, we should be like kind of that, you know, check and balance, right? That's the way it should work. Okay. Back to you on that.
So basically with the trash, it sounds like we're getting a fair amount of trash from other counties. I know that Ed here mentioned a sticker, and that seems like something that could be put together for very little money. Even if you mail 2 stickers to every single household in the county, you can't be talking about more than about $10,000 in that.
Right.
And if someone then comes in, you know, and you do that over like a 3-month spell where you're telling everyone that comes in, they have to request a sticker from the county. So there's some kind of website set up pretty cheaply with the county. They can request a sticker, put in their address. It has to be a valid address in the county. And then after that 3-month period, somebody comes in, they don't have a trash sticker. You know, you maybe give them a warning the first time and say, you gotta request a sticker. They mail it to them. You know, it'll eliminate a lot more of it for a fraction of the cost of putting in a $50,000 camera system at every place, or hiring a bunch of people that are kind of floating around having to know who's here, who's not here, because worst case scenario, two vehicles per household has a sticker. Most counties in America do not provide trash service free. You know, we can call it free, it's not, it's our tax dollars that are spent on it, but free to their residents. They have to pay a service to do that, and that's, you know, if we have to limit and make it a little bit harder for people to take trash in and take a few more steps, it's a minor inconvenience one time to then eliminate a lot of other trash, you know, coming in from the county.
That was the concept that was proposed year before
Right.
with the stickers, and then it just died, I guess. There was no action taken on it.
Should that not just be housed in the back and pile
That's where it was, that's where the concept was, yeah. And they were gonna put it, right,
That was
they
our
were gonna
first
put it
step when
right
I
there.
first
That's
bought
where you go get your
it.
sticker, you know, you pick up your tag, you know, you re-register,
Can
whatever.
we revive that?
Yes, I
Can we
can.
revive that, test it?
Yes, I can. And I think we need to, go ahead.
I should say, and have some signs made up that go on all the convenience centers that say, you must have a sticker to,
Yeah,
And-
the trash here that informs them.
And your workers should have a tablet to record those stickers that come in, at least the first 2 months.
Yeah.
And then you'll look them over again to see how much has changed. Because people move and change. And then you
Yeah, you'll never eliminate all of it, but you don't need to, and it's not worth eliminating it all for the amount of money that
Just level it out.
Yeah, but if you eliminate a lot of it,
Yeah.
that's,
yeah. And a lot of stuff we're seeing, I mean, Chester sees it all the time. These trucks pull in, and they got these big sides up, filled to the top, dumping in there, and they're not from this county.
so,
Anyway, we need to move on. Okay, so surplus items. We passed a surplus on what, the sanitation stuff? A
Yes.
couple meetings ago. We haven't seen that sale or auction post. It was supposed to be an auction, so asked about it. And this one hasn't even come in front of the commission, but I was given this list. It's got a bunch of vehicles and tractors and mowers on it. The date's already set, but it's kind of interesting because the commission hasn't seen this yet, so.
Linda, there is
they're-
and I mentioned this before, there is a auction company down in Chattanooga, it's called Compass Auction.
No, I know.
That is the most fair way to auction that stuff off that there is.
No, I know, but this is the county executive function, so, this list, I got it yesterday. When I looked at it, I realized it didn't have the sanitation stuff on it. So, I don't know, that one should have been scheduled. That one's already been approved through the commission. This is new, but the date's already set, and the date's before the commission meeting, so I don't understand this one. So we'll follow up on
So
this.
this stuff right here, look at this list, you know, there's some of this stuff I'm not familiar with. And it's not been brought before us, to approve.
Yeah, so, what else I got on here? The middle school renovation, there's nothing new on that, other than they voted on to move forward with this project. This was the grant, the COVID money, $2 million, and then the county pays 11% match. And the work was supposed to, the guidelines say that it's supposed to be done by the 31st of October. That seems unrealistic. So more on that, we'll follow up on that. Budget workshop calendar changes, I already mentioned. The next meeting's May 4th, that's open. And, those meetings are important because that's when you'll hear the departments come in and present their budgets. We'll ask questions, public can ask questions. And, then as we go through that process, then you get towards the end of the process and we'll have a kind of a draft budget. And then I think it's 21 days that it has to be posted, right, for people to review, and then it goes to the commission for final vote. So by the time you get to that, there's like not a lot of time to make changes. So if you want to have any voice in the way the budget's put together or ask questions, please, stay on top of that budget calendar.
What was that day?
The next meeting is the 4th of May. Let me look up the time. It's on the county website on the event, so 5 p.m. is what this says.
Where?
It should be at the courthouse. It should be public notice. The public notice is going to be in the, in the Dunlap paper. But I would watch that website, but I already gave you dates that aren't even on there yet for the fire departments and the nonprofits that are different, so that thing hasn't been updated to reflect this. Okay, already talked. Emergency Services Committee, so we were supposed to get the draft contract for the ambulance service for Puckett, because that's the proposal we accepted on 15 April. We didn't get it till the 20th of April. We have a meeting after we all look at that. I haven't looked at that yet, I'm on that committee, but I will look at that in the next couple of days and send my list of questions into, they go to the attorney and county executive and the head of the committee when I send my questions in, and then just, whatever those questions are. Hopefully they can be, usually they're legal questions, so the attorney would reply. 1 May at 10 a.m. at the courthouse, the Emergency Service Committee is going to meet, and then that's going to be kind of, we vote on the contract, whether or not we want to move it to the commission floor. That's why you got to read it now, ask your questions, and go to that meeting, because that should be, any final minor things, and then we vote. And then the commission meeting would be the 18th.
You said that one was May 1st?
May 1st is the committee meeting, yes. Road committee,
Okay, on the road committee, I did present, I think 8 or 9 work orders for them to fill these potholes and stuff. And I will be, as time goes along, is get from y'all a request of where I could take one down once or 2 or 3 weeks, something like that, to try to get some help. They let them come out when they get spare time and try to do a little here and a little there. I'm pretty lucky on getting that done, and that is. So we'll keep it up. It's working. It's working.
like people call in, the way it's done is they call in, they'll write a work order, but it's like, everybody calling in. So we just thought it would be more efficient. Eric gave us, the crew for like 2 days up on the mountain. So Chester collected the consolidated, put in a consolidated work order. We went out on social media and asked people, get it in, be specific.
Is he still on schedule for doing the paving on that?
Yes, sir. Last I talked to him, he was.
The Window Rock Road is going to get done first from what we understand.
Then he's gonna pave the rest of Ensign Gap.
Yeah.
Right.
Within the next 3 weeks, he told me.
Yeah.
So we should be getting pretty close to knocked on doors.
And
Okay.
then did I hear him say he was gonna do Pete Green Road?
Which one?
Pete Green?
Yeah, about the first third of a mile went to Peak Creek. Yeah. They filled some potholes there that have been there for a long time. That first part of that road is really rough. So yes, he intends
The
to,
first part, the middle, and the last part's really rough.
well, I know. Yep.
And it extends out to Dana Cemetery too, so.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's, the list is endless.
And one more
Emergency services, what time is that meeting on May 1st?
10 a.m.
Thank you.
I know why you're asking too, but anyway, all right. So Personnel Committee, we're supposed to look at the personnel policy. There has not been a meeting all year. So it'll be interesting when we start talking about raises in the county.
Well, that goes back again to policies and procedures. Before you give a raise, you need to have a policy. Most companies have one. And I don't see why Squatter County government does not recognize that.
All right.
So excuse me, I'm sorry.
I know, it's, that one, I just wanted to mention that we haven't met all year. It's still outstanding. Opioid Committee, third round grant, we're still reviewing there were 2 submissions. Next meeting is 7 May, 1 p.m. at the courthouse. And the 2 organizations that submitted for the grant, we're going to do a Q&A session. We've reviewed them, did an initial review, now the Q&A, and then hopefully we can decide at that point and then bring it in front of the commission for, whatever we decide to approve or not. 4th round, okay, so, I'm sorry, I screwed that up. That was the 4th round that's in progress. On the 3rd round, that was the one that we were under contract with Helping Hands. Their first quarter report was due the 13th of April. They did not submit it on the 13th of April, and then when they did submit it, there are many issues, and there's a breach of contract right now, which we're sorting through. So they're staying on top of that with the county executive. So we're just going through the process right now. I don't have any further information on that. Growth issues for Lewis Chapel. Northwest board representation. Okay, so the second round, you get 3 rounds where the board submits a list to the mayor. Right now it's Mayor Wong, because the board right now it's just all Hamilton County. And he picked one off the first list, he rejected the other 2. There's 3 board positions open. The second list that they sent him, he rejected all those people on there. When he rejects that list, those people on the list, they can't be put in anymore. So not the water board, but the general manager twice went out, advertised in the Hamilton County paper, asked for more resumes, even though our resumes are still sitting in there. And our names have never been put forward yet. However, I still feel that we have an opportunity here. The process isn't done. That's all I'm going to say about that right now. So I know I talked to Adam last week. They're working on a 3rd list, which is due back to the mayor by about the middle of May, is what he told me. So these board positions were over in January. They expired, but the people stay in the positions until they either get approved again or the new person gets selected. Land use planning. Okay, so I discussed this, this is where when we had our offsite, we had a briefing that I mentioned last time. I can pass this around. This is a briefing. I guess I can post this. What I asked we do as a county, this is going to be a really new thing. We move forward and stand up this planning commission and start doing land use planning. Land use planning, you can have subdivision rules, you can have, or zoning. Okay, zoning, I'll give you an example. So that explosive storage facility right down the road here, okay, if you don't want that, that's zoning. Zoning has to do with what you do on the land. Subdivision, that's different. I think everybody knows what subdivision rules are. So, and there's differences too. I can pass this around because it's a pretty good brief. We're trying to get this guy back that gave us a brief. He's from CTAS, but I worked with him on that floodplain thing. So, he knows the stuff. He did this brief. But what I suggested to the county executive, and he's thinking about doing this in between commission meetings, because we meet every other month, so it'll be May, and we got a bunch of budget meetings, but then July again. So thinking about bringing him back and have a public meeting, so the public can get this brief, so they understand, so we don't get no, we don't want this. They need to understand what it is and why we may want to move in this direction. And then all the different, options within it and how it's set up. How do you move forward? What have other counties done that have, experienced it? So anybody wants to read this, and I can send you a copy too. I have it. So, I'm going to push for that we do that public meeting, and it would be like, like they did with the floodplain, one in the afternoon, one in the evening to catch people coming back from work, have to be advertised. And I think that's a good way forward to do the education up front, so people understand it, they have a chance to ask questions, right? And then, we move forward based on, it's a stepwise process, but I think it eliminates a lot of aggravation if you do it this way. And then the people have an opportunity to ask questions, and I think the people we ought to be in charge of our future and where we want to go. So we need to have the opportunity to hear what this is and mull it over, ask our questions. But there needs to be a process, yes, sir.
Liz, I think somehow we need to start getting the word out about data centers, because I know the state of Maine.
Okay, wait, it's on here.
It's on the next thing.
That's what we're going to talk about next, but it's okay. I was going to say that's one example, explosive data center. Okay, so what they're doing with these, and the states are like, with the early, all these big companies that are going to, it was an article, several articles actually that I saw. They're going to these like rural areas like this because they know, lots of farmland, lots of open space. And they're, small county governments, that kind of stuff, not very sophisticated sometimes. And they'll go and they'll sign an NDA, non-disclosure agreement with the mayor, right? And they'll work the deal with that mayor. And mainly, we know why they're doing it this way is because they don't want the public involvement. So, everything blows through, and then next thing you know, you got trucks digging up dirt, and, they're building a data center. Recent history, like this week, this week, Bradley County, I've looked at their plan and stuff when I was doing some research last year. They have a planning commission, they've had one. They've got some incorporated areas, but they've got a pretty good planning commission. They have zoning also. And they've managed to, map out the areas where they want farmland and, the different kind of growth areas and the type of growth. There was some company came in and bought an amount of acreage, I forget what it was, and they were going to put up a data center. So when they got wind of this, they basically, they went and they put rules in place and they voted on it this week. So there is a process where, they wouldn't be uninformed. Like if somebody comes into that county, they need to go through a process and, they'll look at it, the county will look at it and then, decide whether or not they want that kind of entity in their, in their county. So they put some special rules in place specifically to address data centers. We know that they consume, I don't know, they're different kinds of, they generate a lot of heat, so the cooling, like if they use water, it's a lot of water, they use a lot of power, there's concerns, and some of these places that got put up early, they're taking power off the grid, it's a lot of power, so now rates are going up, right, because there's greater demand.
Yeah, pretty much anywhere they go in, you can expect the rates to double in the next probably 5 years.
So now some states...
I don't use the electricity here, so I don't really care, but I don't want them here anyway.
Right. So, Ed, you're going to say, and some states are already putting rules in about this, that if they put a data center in, they gotta supply their own power. They gotta put on-site generation. So I think it was the early movers that caused a lot of these problems, but we don't have anything that would prevent some company coming in, and they're paying huge premiums on the land. I mean, it's just ridiculous numbers. People would probably sell their land, because I mean, they're ridiculous numbers. It's crazy. So we don't have anything in place right now. So it's something else to consider about, planning commission. And it's the only way as we grow, these things are going to be thrown at us, right? I mean, as we move down the road, it's not just residential issues, it's going to
The thing about, and I'm sorry,
be. No, go ahead.
the thing about these data centers, it's not years down the road. This is happening now.
Right now.
And if these data centers get an early start, they're gonna be there before anybody ever stops them.
Right.
I mean, I have questions about why are we putting up, looks like 200 or 300 acres worth of solar panels in Sequatchie Valley when we get our power from TVA. I promise you, our power bills are fixing to go up. It makes me think somebody already knows about some kind of data centers.
You're right.
Why do we need all that extra power?
Yeah, certainly, I looked it up. Go ahead. It's an 8 megawatt site, which is nothing, but.
We need to stay on top of a data thing. It is outlawed in the state of Maine. They cannot put one in the state of Maine. I just heard, and I was trying to remember the counties. There's already some other counties in Texas and some other states that are outlawing data centers. So it is not a good thing. They're bringing it to the rural areas, like you said a while ago, because there's no regulation. It's just a wild, wild mess.
Right.
So
Yeah, I know.
that's my spiel on data
I
centers.
have a question. If someone wants to come in and build that, don't they have to go to someone in authority to get the permits? And so they don't have to
Not
go
in
to
the unincorporated area.
or the mayor
No
to get.
permit required.
Isn't there a permit for the water infrastructure that would have to be?
Not in the unincorporated areas. The only thing you need to build something here right now, if you're not in a flood zone, which we now have that if you're near a creek and all up here, but certain creeks, not all creeks. You just need sewage, septic tank and electricity.
You
That's
gotta
it.
get a stormwater runoff permit from the state. That's all you gotta get.
Wow,
That's true.
so we're gonna be targeted.
Oh, yeah.
They're targeting all rural areas because of that.
So I asked the county executive, have you engaged in any discussions as any company, because, we're talking about Bradley County right next door.
Yeah.
Has anybody, come to you proposing a data center? And he said, no, not yet.
I thought it was in Washington, getting the deal done.
Well, do they know his position on it?
He needs the money, it's not money.
I can't honestly say, I can't speak for him on that because I don't know.
Okay, does the county commission have the power to pass some kind of law or rule or regulation for the county?
No, that would be the commissioners.
That's the only way you're gonna do it, is if we had a planning commission, because we don't have, we can't pass laws, because we don't legislate. If there is a law that we can, do like noise ordinances, that kind of stuff within the law. We could put further restrictions on, but we cannot, we don't have a planning commission,
You
so.
can't just say, hey, Squash County is passing regulations on data centers, like they did in Maine.
If you have a planning committee, you could.
Planning commission,
You
yeah.
have to have it.
But that's state level. I think there's something rolling through the legislature right now. I have to double check on that here, but anyway.
Well, what about the citizens of Sequatchie County put together a petition and submit that to our county executive and mayor and say, we don't want this?
So what authority would he have? That's the thing, what authority?
It would be probably the state or federal one that the petition would be. I don't know which one, more likely state.
But here's what happens. They come in, you own farm. They buy your farm. It's private property.
That's it.
We have no authority. That's really that's what it comes down to.
Same thing with the explosive storage facility that's in my backyard.
Right.
They didn't have to have any permits from the county. Nobody, as far as I know, even knew they were showing up until they were there.
Yeah.
Same way with data centers, it'll be the same situation.
And do we have enough water? I just keep thinking
That's gonna be a question.
Well,
We don't have enough flow.
We don't have enough flow for that, do we?
Could you pass an ordinance to amend the county charter to reflect it?
We could.
Because I know that we have ordinances that go up and come off the books
yeah.
to the city, but we would have to do it with county budget.
Yeah, but then, I don't think it's an ordinance, they called it something else in here. By the way, next meeting, I got Chad Reese tentatively scheduled to come to our next meeting here and talk about this. He's our local development district planner, he's been here before, he was here last year, but this is a lot more important, and he's gonna have a much more, he's gonna focus just on this. He talked about some other things last time he was here.
He's just gonna focus on
This,
planning.
planning commission. It was a third thing. I know, I'm burning the clock here a little
Take your
bit.
time. You can mess up if you didn't.
Did I not print that page? It was a third thing, but it's being challenged in court. So he told us, like, that's probably not gonna, yeah, freestanding police powers over nuisance. Is he, it's another tool, I guess, or another thing we could do, but right now, there's a Tinsley Property LLC versus Grundy County case pending before the state Supreme Court. So they're thinking that that's not gonna be a route anymore. There's also a couple other Supreme Court cases, state, so they're challenging that, and they're thinking that that may not be, a valid way forward anymore. Okay, so, I know there's a lot of angst on this topic. I think the first step is, to have that public meeting, and so everybody gets educated on this, because it's something that as we grow, we really need to look at. But the public's got to definitely be involved on the front end of it and through the process, not just the front end.
I want to make sure to push for an evening meeting because it's pulling teeth to get an evening meeting on the floodplain that was trying to do.
Well, I know. He committed to a, afternoon and an evening meeting, because I know we got that one, they did finally get that evening meeting in, but it was like pulling teeth. They understand, I think, now, so it shouldn't be an issue. Okay, expanded healthcare services. I don't know if Angie's gonna be here. Are you guys gonna talk about that at your meeting? Okay. We got the mobile mock on the mountain. Yes. I'll just tell you guys, if you don't stay for me, May 6th, they're doing an open house, 1:30 to 2:30 here local time. The van's gonna be here in the parking lot. So they're just gonna, basically, it's a show and tell thing. And they're gonna talk, anybody who shows up, they're gonna take you through the van. They'll do blood pressure testing and all that kind of stuff, minor things, but it's mainly check out their systems and stuff, make sure they can plug in here or whatever logistics you guys are working with them. But then, show people the van, explain what it does, what the, a whole bunch of services that they offer. And it is at no charge, anything that they offer. And hopefully, we need to get the word out on this. She doesn't have, I don't think did she send you another flyer?
We have the first draft.
Yeah.
May 6th, right? May 6th.
May 6th, yes.
I
I think it's 1:30 to 2:30 is what,
I think it's 1:30
yeah, 1:30 to 2:30 local time. Okay, we already talked about solid waste management alternatives, so I won't talk about that. Now, we talked at the last meeting, how often do you want us to update you on what we're doing with the planning meeting? We had a planning meeting in January, we're supposed to give you a quarterly feedback. We're not gonna give you one tonight, because we haven't had time to do it. That's the honest truth. We'll try to get one, we'll try to look over those things. We've started moving on some of the things, but it's not organized for a presentation tonight. So we'll hit that, we'll have time to put it together for the next meeting. But anyway, I apologize, but we just didn't get to it. I think that's it. We're through the agenda. We've got bonus time tonight. That's crazy. So what do y'all want, what else do we want to dig into?
Not talk so much.
What's that?
I mean, how are we gonna get the word out on the mobile that's coming up?
We passed that, you know, we did our front end pitch to get it here, and then it's been passed to our partners at the community center, because it's really a community thing, so we're trying to, you know, make sure that we stay focused on commission-related stuff. You know, we got the person on the board, and then we fought for it in the beginning, lost it to the valley, but it's finally up here, so they're gonna start, you know, incorporating, they in the community center are gonna start incorporating things like this, which are more focused on, you know, the community up here.
And if y'all make some flyers of some kind, as I work over the recycling center the weeks I work, I'll give each and every one a flyer. That will expand out around 200 some people. And then let them take the word of mouth and go and,
That was on the list at the planning meeting to expand, you know, opportunities for, especially our seniors up here, to access health care. So that's one thing we got accomplished. But we did all the things, but we'll be organized next meeting. We're not ready to present what we did, tell you what the status is. All right.
and thank you all very much.
Yeah, no, thank you. Appreciate it. So remember, early voting ends April 30th. Primary election up here at the church, May 5th.